Hello and welcome back to Week in Review with the one and only Doooovid. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here today. We are looking forward to our chat this evening. I'll hand it over to Doooovid for the introductions.
Okay, great to be back. Jennifer, I hope everyone had a great week. Doooovid had a pretty good week. I've been streaming almost daily with Luke Ford. Hopefully we'll talk a little bit about that. And it's been pretty intense, almost purely Orthodox Jewish theology, not even like just Jewish theology, but Orthodox Jewish theology. And, I think Jennifer will intuitively understand outside of the Orthodox Judaism, at least the theological concepts, and that should be interesting. And, new thoughts on mathematics and Stephen Wolfram. And, I think a few people reached out to Jennifer, and maybe we're going to be able to officialize the Howie debate over Aryan invasion theory. So looking forward to that. And maybe Libra is going to be able to come on and do some meta-analysis and update week in review style to be able to, hopefully encapsulate everything he did in the week and the progress he made, and just share that with us. And if that works out, hope, maybe he'll become weekly segment of update on his progress. And just in the spirit, let's open it up with a chant. And I had a video that I played on Luke Ford today, and it was very important for my conversation with Luke Ford. And actually, this chant is basically probably what caused Doooovid to come up with the multiple truth hypothesis. And it's from a Talmud in Sukkot. I've been talking with Luke, and we say in the prayer service in Judaism, there's something called Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chayim, which means these and these are the words of the living God. And it's a pretty regular concept in Judaism, to say like it's pilpul, like it's multiple truth hypothesis, that there's this and there's that, and it's both the words of the living God. So there's kind of a legend, one about what used to happen when the temple was around in the celebrations during Sukkah, and also what's going to happen at the end of days. And I was saying on Luke, kind of like, what's the commonality between me and Luke theologically as an overlap in our Judaism? And largely, it's going to come down to me and Luke believe and hope that a Messiah will come and rebuild the temple and reinstitute this lifestyle of what we'll call Judaism, and we will be included. And obviously then there's Orthodox Jews in the community and the laws and stuff we do in practice, but in terms of what do we really believe, what do we think, there's this this belief in the temple and in Messiah. And so the Talmud says at the end of days, the old men are going to sit around and they're going to say, these groups, meaning all the various Jews that make it to Jerusalem. This is why this chant is the source of the multiple truth hypothesis, although the multiple truth hypothesis is standing alone as a philosophical scientific theory. But this is kind of my Judeo inspiration for why I first started thinking along these ideas. And it wasn't just this chant, but this chant epitomizes it because of the messianic concept that all the various Jews that merit to make it to Jerusalem are all going to say together, Ashrei mi shelo yachata, praiseworthy is the person that never sinned. And then added on to it, mi shechatu yashuv, and those who sinned should repent. And they're saying, me and Luke are obviously flawed people. Anyone who looks at us is like, come on, these guys are not Orthodox Jews. Doooovid just went to the Hare Krishna temple. Doooovid, you could just follow me for a brief amount of time, just pick, no, if he was an Orthodox Jew, he wouldn't have done that, and that. But in the greater scheme of, I think at the end of the day, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to be like, I tried my best. I was basically on the path. And yes, I think when the temple's rebuilt, that I'm going to be there. And so to say, Messiah is going to yell out from the temple, when it's time for the temple to be built, this chant, praiseworthy is the person who never sinned. And all the people who were like, yes, I agree. My whole life was dedicated to the rebuilding of this temple. This is everything that my life was culminated toward. Will repeat back, Ashrei mi shelo yachat. It was a very nice tune to that, and I think it might be obvious. Anyone who's been listening to this for a while, what this kind of these and these. We're all going to say praiseworthy is the person who didn't sin, and what does it mean to be the person who didn't sin? And obviously it's very difficult not to sin, and depending on how you understand theological concepts, various things may be sins or not sins. So according to one school, this isn't a sin, and a different school, this is a sin. And but at the end of days, like anyone who makes it to the temple when it's rebuilt is going to say Ashrei mi shelo yakatu. So I guess this is the Lubavitch Rebbe. So saying it's not going to be Doooovid leading the chant. It's going to be someone like the Lubavitch Rebbe. So let's let Jennifer play the clip of the Rebbe.
And back over to you, Doooovid.
Yeah, I really appreciate you playing that, and hopefully people get a pretty good feel for what Messiah might look like. So from a perspective, Messiah is just this concept that there's going to be a perfected world, and all of the righteous people who did their best, and even though we had failings, somehow we merit to be there, and at this theoretical third temple that's going to be rebuilt, where the people who stood to merit to be the chosen people to worship God in the chosen way are going to be ready to do whatever that worship is. The Talmud says like it's going to be someone's going to get up there and he's going to yell Ashrei mi shelo yachatu, and so I think theologically the concept makes sense, and say okay, the Lubavitch Rebbe was just a rabbi, he's just a flesh and blood rabbi that was a great man, but in many, like the legends of rabbis are true. And from what we understand of the Judeo concept of Messiah, who was the most likely person who would have been leading that chant of Ashrei mi shelo yachatu, praiseworthy is the person who didn't sin, would have unquestionably been the Lubavitch Rebbe. And those words come from the Talmud. So the Lubavitch Rebbe himself chanted those verses, and that tune comes from the Baal Shem Tov, who, David's always Doooovid, the Hasidic movement, and the Baal Shem Tov is the founder of the Hasidic movement that the Lubavitch Rebbe is representative of. So that tune comes, and but related to the multiple truth hypothesis, why I started first thinking about this is because, yeah, I do want to be there. I do want to believe that despite all of my failings, somehow God will allow me to be from the people who are, going to be there at the temple when the temple's rebuilt. And theoretically, from a Judeo understanding, this is really how we're supposed to look at it. And the
Awesome. Well,
atonement.
thanks, Doovid, for all that explanation. Before you go on, do you mind just adjusting your camera a tiny bit? Because right now your head's really at the, it would be nice to be able to, hey, welcome to the show, Dr. Dan and Howie, but I just thought it'd be nice to be able to get a good view of Doovid. And
Okay,
before,
I'll wrap up
awesome.
real quick.
Go ahead.
So the guests come on. But there's another concept that says that like you burn your portion in the world to come when you see the people who so to say have a seat next to you. You're saying like, okay, you could have a front row seat, but you don't necessarily know who is also going to be in the front row. And sometimes God's way of scoring things may not be the way one predicted. So in the way, all I could do is prepare myself to be that person who could stand when at the rebuilt temple and say, praiseworthy is the person who didn't sin. And the other people there who may actually also pass God's judgment, say that's not going to be me passing the judgment on them. It's going to be them standing up there and saying, also, praiseworthy is the person who didn't sin. And, so God, Messiah, will judge that person, not me. And that was probably why I first started, at least conceptually, thinking of this multiple truth hypothesis. But I think, from there and other Judeo-type theological problems, then I started researching more straightforward mathematics and philosophy and physics. And then obviously Jennifer, you enlightened me onto quantum consciousness and the quantum mind. And, so I think even though relatively that's the origins of my multiple truth hypothesis, that is really applicable to people, even if they're, not thinking about the King Solomon's temple or some Judeo-messianic concept that necessitated the multiple truth hypothesis.
Okay, thanks for giving us that explanation, Doovid. I appreciate it. Before we go to our guests, which we're very excited to have, I just want to quickly address a question in the chat about whether you can rotate the truth. Okay, so again, the answer to this question depends on how you define truth, right? So truth is, in my definition, it's that which exists whether or not we do. So it's just a thing. Okay? Can you rotate that which exists whether or not we do? Well, you can rotate it. Being able to rotate something implies that there's something that's not moving that you can rotate it with respect to. And no such thing exists because this truth, this abstract truth of that which exists whether or not we do, is the thing that is rotated relative to. So it doesn't itself rotate. And if it were, you'd have to, if you were going to try to rotate truth, quote unquote, you'd have to construct some extra universal construct within which you could rotate the truth, but that would violate the axioms because it's the existence hypothesis is just built into the axioms. Truth is just existence, non sort of caring about our own interpretations on it. So again, down to definition. But yeah, go ahead. How has your week been? Dr. Dan, aka Super Lyrics, thanks for coming on the show. Over to you.
Good. Hi. Thanks. Been interesting. It's been a good week. Do you see my sharing there? I want to make sure I get that up. Got a new screen I put up there.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so I tracked down a guy who seems to be pretty adept there. That's Moritz Bierling. He's a little go-getter, and he rides a unicycle. I don't know if you know how big of a fan I am of unicycles, but I rode a 10-foot unicycle once. That was enough to say I could do it. After that, I didn't want to do it again. It's scary up there, but I did it. He can ride a unicycle. So what do you know? We're a match made in heaven there. Besides you and me, of course, Jen. But what I did, I made this into a game. I'm gamifying life because nobody has authority anymore in anyone else's eyes. As far as I can tell, nobody can believe anything that they hear or see. And you go and they talk to you, and it gets even deeper because you talk about the different dimensions and whatnot. Anyway, that's all stuff that's too deep. So what I figured was the easiest way to demonstrate the theory would be to make it as simple as possible, so that like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old could learn it. Because that's what you do anyway. That's what culture is, right? You try to teach your kids what's right and wrong, well, right from birth. You know, you condition them into more or less what you want them to be, and good luck to see what happens. So if the model is complete, then it will be able to communicate it also in a way that a child that young could understand. So that's what I got. I got your guide to the matrix and meet the Sims. How about that? So I'm going to take the angle that we're living in the matrix and you can't prove otherwise. It might break your axioms, but it could be true, right? So you just can't prove otherwise. It's one of those truths you just can't prove wrong.
You can't prove it in the affirmative, though.
Right, yeah, but I'm saying what this is, it allows you to communicate fully with someone who believes that we were just rebooted yesterday and this is a new existence today. And there's nothing you can do to convince him otherwise because he believes that, right? Okay, that's fine. We'll go with it. We're in the matrix. So what there are basically 4 kinds of people in the matrix. You got Hitler, money, happy, and free. That's it. You get people who like to boss people around. You got people who are good at making money. You got people who are happy, and people who do whatever the heck they want to. And you're in this category. I consider myself in this category. And everyone's just a little bit of a mix of all that. But that's the big rough outgrouping there. And since
So one of your archetypes is literally Hitler?
Oh, you know what I mean. Like the centralized government.
No, I don't.
Okay, well, this is what I mean. A centralized government.
Yeah, if there's only 4 archetypes, like what's the odds that one of those archetypes is going to be literally Hitler? I could see if there were, but you're saying like, okay,
well, that's the joke.
Well, literally Hitler is the hero archetype.
What you're saying, if there are only possibility of 4 archetypes that you're saying like it's going to reduce to Hitler's representative of one of like the 4 great powers of archetypes?
Well, what it represents is a centralized network. There's only 3 kinds of networks. You got a centralized, decentralized, and distributed, and it's something in between there. So your Hitler archetype would be, well, centralized, whatever it is.
You want to say fascism or generally the...
Yeah. So that tendency to want a centralized, orderly government, this one hub of control controls all the other nodes. So sometimes that's very useful. I mean, I'm a computer networker, so
but it's a limiting explanation that saying if you want to make just a political spectrum that if you like totalitarianism, Hitler is limiting the concept because like fascism is only one type of totalitarianism and is giving you a Western bent, and you just said something for like 2-3-year-olds, and like I would, in today's days, people aren't that educated. It could be worldwide, even less than half of people in the world have ever heard of Hitler. Let alone a little kid, these concepts.
But they'll understand this centralized.
We're saying just understand the color. If you're saying like the red blood, like Hitler is kind of like red blood, death. That even if a kid doesn't know who Hitler is, that they'll see the red and there'll be a natural connection between red and blood, and then eventually when they find out who Hitler is, the connection, blood, now I see the connection.
Yeah, well, yeah, the way my tack is just as far as understanding that if everything's a network, you may as well understand how networks work. There's the centralized network, so that would be a server with a bunch of nodes getting information from the server.
So a server is Hitlerian.
Yes.
Are you versed in modern literature and academia? Are you familiar with Robert Schiller, like the Yale economics professor, Robert Schiller?
What this is, it's a way to illustrate whatever you want to talk about. This is a way to illustrate it in a way that a 2-year-old can understand. Instead of reading all that stuff, well, you can communicate exactly the same information and knowledge to a sharp 10-year-old. He'd understand whatever you have to say about whatever writer. Well, it's included in this model, so your model will fit whatever you're talking about. It fits this model somewhere. You see what I mean?
That's why I'm mentioning Schiller and saying there's narrative and then there's formula. And so to say narratives fit into formulas. So if you create a formula, all narratives fit within the formula. So narratives are a lesser level of abstraction than formulas. So if you know a mathematical person...
I'm sorry, but I disagree with that. Sorry.
Okay, well, I'll finish the statement and then whoever could respond. But I'm saying if you know the formula, the narrative is a lesser level of abstraction of information, and if two people are versed in mathematics, you could just give over the formula, and so to say the examples are a waste of time. Like, I don't need your examples, I understand.
Right, yes, beautiful. Well, that's the way it works out here with everything can be broken down to one of these three models or a hybrid of these. So centralized, decentralized, and distributed. So this is kind of the internet where everybody's got their iPhone, but if they're going on to get data, well, these are the different server farms, and this would be, well,
We don't need the examples. We understood
okay. So that's what you got. You get Hitler, money, happy, and free. So and since everyone's equal, yeah, happy plus Hitler equals free money. So that's what I figure is, if we take that as the objective of the goal, we want to move everyone. And here's the model of government. You have a hierarchy and a centralized power and money structure, where one person, the extreme would be one single person would be in control of everything. So that's your network model, the centralized model. And everything in between, so how many people are authoritative? Well, if everybody is authoritative, that means everybody does whatever they want. And then power and money is distributed equally. That would be the exact opposite, where everybody has, it's not the opposite, but it's the other network would be distributed, where everyone has the same money, the same power. They believe the same things, everyone's equal. So that's the other extreme. So if you can get Hitler and happy to be purple, then you get free money. That's the joke. So how you do that is with this interface right here. This is right on my home page. So you've got the Hitler and the happy, and they prefer, now in the power structure, they're more comfortable with a centralized government. So they want to tell everyone what to do. And this person is more comfortable in the freer environment. So this is body, this is voice or money, and this is what the person thinks. So now this is any story. This is not, what you have here is a generic cartoon for anything you want to say between two people, or you could even use civilizations or companies or whatever, okay? So let's, for example, we're gonna have Hitler's gonna be mad and yelling because this guy is stuck in his room on a video game and doesn't want to do anything. Blah, 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 blah. And he's behind the door, so she doesn't hear him, so it doesn't matter. Mom, I love you. He says nice things to her. Oh, that's nice. So he modifies her behavior by saying that he loves her. Okay, how many times can you do that? Okay, now she's mad again because he's still in his room. Blah, 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 blah. Mom, I love you. Now this time, I don't know if that's going to work as much, right? So you watch the Q slopes. If you track those colors, how many times can this guy say, I love you, without getting out of his room and doing the dishes, right? You better do some dishes. Okay, I do the dishes. Now mom's happy. Yay, thank you, son. I love you too.
So in this example, mom is Hitler.
Yeah.
Don't you think you're creating a sort of Hitler-centric worldview?
Well, I think it's a realistic one. So
it's realistic to have a Hitler-centric worldview?
Well, not Hitler-centric. It's one point is, so that would be the extreme.
Blood. No, I mean, it's realistic because you're saying it's your two sides of fear and love. So it's realistic to say, yes, I do think that any day now we're basically just going to start killing each other. My faith in humanity to get along and work together is diminishing. And at some point, like, all hell is going to break loose, and people are just going to start killing each other. And if Libra, wants to use Hitler as the representation in his mind of like all hell breaking loose and people just killing each other, that makes sense, and also just say that's the red color of blood. That for whatever reason, different people due to their conditioning associate blood and all hell breaking loose with different things. And, so Libra's choosing to use Hitler. From a mathematical perspective, it's probably a waste. You might as well just use the concept itself because, something interpretable representative, because largely, saying me and Jennifer are doing similar to what you're doing. and you're doing it more in a narrative way than a mathematical way. And the question of everything, if you could calculate everything in a mechanical universe, every very factor of the quality of the brain, of all of the input information we receive, and all the various whatever we do to the input that we receive to form a global position of consciousness, that your model is representative of that process. But can it be scientificized, mechanized, turned into mathematical equations? And that's the problem with narrative, in the sense that you're giving over your understanding of a concept.
Well, this is the math.
You have to choose.
This is the math.
You have to choose a language. So like, okay, like you choose Hitler or something, but if you're
Right,
in the Far East, maybe no one ever heard of it.
Hitler
Maybe
is
no one ever heard of Hitler, but your example might work the same if you could find a comparative archetype within that person's understanding, because largely it's just representing the concept of red.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, that's just for the playing pieces here. So the math is this. The math is, well, how long was it red, and then what input changed that red to blue? So you could map that in math. Now, I don't know how to do the math, but I bet Jennifer can do it in her head. If it took 30...
No, because a archetypal system where one of the archetypes is Hitler causes me to have, like a toilet flushing sensation of cognitive dissonance.
Okay, well then that's your problem though, right? You know how to go.
No, it's not my problem. I suppose it's your problem if your thing is nonsensical and has...
Yeah, because you arbitrarily made red Hitler. So red in your mind corresponds to Hitler, but from a scientific perspective, there could be reason to choose Hitler to define the archetype of red. But
I mean,
from another person's mind, you're like, no, I mean, even like, okay, like whatever a person's opinion of history or what red represents, that it's unlikely that a lot of people are going to agree that Hitler is the archetype of red.
Right. No, I know, but that's just the color shift as far as...
You might have an element. That's why I said, like, your heuristic might be useful to you in a group of people that use a similar heuristic, and it's like a lexicon within a science. You need a lexicon to communicate to the people that are sharing your similar ideas, but that's the purpose. Like, we can review in streaming that, me and Jennifer are smart enough to understand your lexicon and get over.
I'm not sure that I am. I really don't know if I can consider Hitler a language. Like, I speak Spanish and Hitler. That doesn't make any sense.
No, I mean,
so
Hitler
right off the bat, it makes no sense.
It's just a word.
Let me show you this. Let me show you
to represent a mode, and so the mode is basically red. So I mean, Libra is saying that the main takeaway that we're taking from this graph is red, and he's attaching additional meaning by giving some sort of narrative to red, and he chose Hitler. Yeah. But
now,
if I understand what Libra is saying, like, the main thing is not Hitler, it's the red.
Exactly, and that's just for playing pieces. But what's important is where they're placed on the board. So let me show you this universal pattern. This is every single culture, every single religion, every single culture or ideology has this in it. It is brain feel good, say good things, do bad things to others, right? So that's like a law. No, it guards against this.
Not every religion operates in the same way. So now you're saying no matter what religion, it's like, well, right off the hop, I can tell you whatever you're assuming is going to be wrong.
Okay, so most cultures inculcate this as a bad pattern. Don't be happy and say good things and then do bad things, not intentionally. That's a liar. That's a cheat. That's someone who does bad things and tries to tell you it's okay.
You can go about two different approaches at the same time, but like when you try to sell your ideas, a lot of times it may be beneficial to speak in hyperbole and try to like, oh, these ideas are great and they do so much. But like from a scientific point of view, me and Jennifer, it's better to be precise and not overstate what your ideas do, or not mislead somebody, and just say very clearly and precisely, this is what I'm doing, this is what you could do with it, even though you might on your own channel and in other periods use hyperbole to, so to say, try to sell your ideas.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying if you had a computer that could track this slope pattern right here, over time, if you find someone that says they're happy, and then does bad things, well, that Q slope, it gives you a coefficient of quality, meaning what they say, what they do is not grouped closely. You have red behavior.
And me and Jennifer would just have been saying the exact same thing in the language of dissonance. I mean, yeah, obviously,
So
when you think you're a good person and do bad things, there's going to be dissonance.
Okay.
And so I accept your system of some sort of graphical color representation of dissonance.
It's a QR code. This is a QR code of lying right here. This is lying behavior. Okay, or a mistake. Maybe they're incompetent. So you check how close is the grouping. If someone's always in the purple and all of a sudden, whoops, they broke something. Well, it's likely that wasn't intentional. That was probably a mistake. So here you can track out your employees. If you got someone who's a really good worker, oops, they broke something. Well, you don't fire them because they're a really good worker. That was a mistake. But if you got someone who's constantly breaking stuff, well, he's either a bad worker or you got him in the wrong job, one or the other. You got to fix that because you can't have someone breaking stuff. Not if you got a business. So change his job. So what this Q slope would be, okay, we got this guy. He seems great, talks great. We love him. He starts out, does a good job. Oops, he broke something. So the slope would go from purple to red. Okay, what happened? He broke a tractor. Okay, well, we'll try again. Yeah, he's doing a good job. Oh, he did it again. How many times before you go, you know what? Why don't you try driving something else? And then he finds something else to do. So the Q slope would go purple, red, purple, 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 red, purple, red, red, red. Okay, change jobs. Okay, now he's all purple. So you would see a decrease in quality being defined by color, a quality from purple to red until you figure out what's wrong. Okay, no, it's a really good, maybe he's going to work there for 20 years. It's a way for employers to evaluate their employees. And also, this guy keeps breaking stuff. How long before he's not happy about it either, right? Unless he is, if he's a psychopath, then his head would be here. He's happy to break stuff. Well, you've got a dangerous person on your hands. No matter what he says or what he thinks, you can only have him breaking stuff so long. So that's where it's valuable in business is if you have Q slopes of people demonstrating their competence and they say they're good, well, this is something else. This is just someone out there to break stuff. Why did you hire that guy? You see what I mean? So your Q slopes always want to be in the light purple. That means it's someone that does a good job for the company. This would be someone that does they're happy with it, but the company doesn't do a lot for the company, maybe. Anyway, you can map those out. And that would be the mathematical part.
I know exactly what you mean to say. My dad, decades ago, got a management job at Frito-Lay, actually, back when they did IQ testing, that, he took an IQ test and got placed straight into management. And now that's illegal. You're not allowed to hire based on IQ tests, but they had taught him a grid, which is basically like a 0 to 9 of management that has, one side relationship with people and one productivity. And the 9-9 is a person who's really good with people and really good at getting things done. And the 0-0 is the person who's not good. Yeah. And so these grids are all over the place. And useful as a heuristic and useful as somewhat unscientifically applying the scientific process. But to advance it to something that's actually scientific and you would be like engineering, even something like economics, that a large amount of economics is really only at the tier of what Libra just showed, but the economics that's considered, laws and works, that's differential equations. That's largely proven mathematics. So what Doovid has been saying for, I don't know if Libra's been watching Week in Review, but I've been mentioning to people how I was hoping someone would do like what you're doing. However, you're only at step one, because the reality, like what you're saying, it is going to be defined by vector fields and differential equations, and probably even mathematics much more deep than currently exist in the human realm, among the top minds, that the mathematics that would be necessary to explain the unification of reality would probably be something far beyond what we even know right now. But certainly the heuristic to explain something, that's Doovid, on Mr. PowerPoint. And I'm 100% on board. Like me and you probably you have different ways of understanding the world, and that's the beauty of your system because it's a graphical way. And one person could see red, and like, okay, you attached Hitler to red, and obviously I have a certain reaction to Hitler, but I was able to just attach that to red and understand your system based on that as a mathematical representative. And whatever, it didn't have to be Hitler, it could have been anything.
Right.
And that's what I said, it could have been the thing that my dad, when I was a kid, taught me about management and good with people, getting things done, and that could have been mapped onto the exact same grid. And that probably is a better example of what you would have been talking about in terms of because they teach shit like this in business school, like Porter's five forces, and like in reality, what you're talking about, we're spiritually minded people, and me and Jennifer specifically care about the hard problem of consciousness. So we're more concerned about these issues. But what Libra is saying, like anyone who's been in business school, like you can't give a presentation without reducing it to an XY axis and like a color coded thing like Libra's showing here.
Yeah. I mean, all the underlying math would be, I mean, that's what you want if you want to calculate that. But you don't have to, because now it's in graphical format. If you're looking at a piece of paper and it says, okay, this employee, purple, all of a sudden a red. Well, whatever it is, you got to figure out what it is. What happened? Oh, they broke something. You know what I mean? If they're always clustered in this color slope in purple, and then all of a sudden, well, that's just an accident, probably. But if you've got another employee that's always clustering around here, well, you're stupid for keeping them. If you have someone that's always causing problems, well, you're stupid for keeping them. It's
because me and Jennifer usually like referring to things in dissonance, and if you like color, but in reality, color is basically a wave. So even though what you're calling color, could basically directly be transferred over to what me and Jennifer are calling dissonance, and even mathematically.
Cognitive dissonance would be this: if X is done, well, I think it was great. Well, I think it was terrible. So the same fact. Okay, we're getting ice cream. I love ice cream. I hate ice cream. You see what I mean? The same fact as ice cream. Some people love it. Some people hate it. So there's the dissonance. It's a dissonance in quality, not in words. It's a difference in color. So once you assign quality to color, then your dissonances are demonstrated by differences in color. And the greater the difference in color, as far as from ends, then the greater the cognitive dissonance here. So here, if everybody loves ice cream, we'll get the ice cream. If nobody likes it, well, why would you get ice cream? There's no dissonance in the feeling there. Nobody likes ice cream. Okay, well, let's get Cracker Jack. Okay, yay, everybody likes it. So that's you measure the time and the cost of that. Well, a box of Cracker Jacks made everybody happy. So how long did it take? Well, it took 10 seconds because it said we're going to get Cracker Jacks. So 10 seconds to change someone's mind from upset to ecstatic because now they get Cracker Jacks. You see what I mean? So all the math, you can figure all the math there. And if you want to figure out math for these angles, that's fine too. But you don't have to, because if you're a CEO and you just want to find out if everything's okay, he'd look down at his watch and discover, okay. And you could have, these are just generic icons, but you could have one business here, this one's in the purple, it's trending upward. You got one business over here, and you got another business over here. This one's going okay, this one's got some problems, this one's doing great. Well, which one are you going to worry about? I'm going to worry about this business right here. So you click on that, and then it opens up a new one. And it shows why it's in the yellow. Well, because you're losing
maybe Doovid, you could have a separate stream with Super Librix at some point, because it seems like it might be good to go into it in detail. I don't know if we want to do this whole big explanation on the show. I think we're going to just focus on like more in the meta-analysis direction of like what's working, what's not working, what kind of progress can you report, and so forth.
Yeah, or even streaming. Like you don't like, okay, we got the basic idea. Like you don't need to tell us it again and again. And it's probably not going to help you in advancing what you're trying to do. But if you want to come to us on a weekly basis and tell us, kind of the progress you made, who you're talking to, what advances you're having, you're welcome, and we wish you success. But we probably just want to keep it brief and encourage you to stream. Saying we started out as small streamers and saying like, just you're doing it. Good job. You're making videos, and maybe next week instead of giving a presentation, just give a presentation of the videos that you made and the people who are interested in the various parts of your idea, so they know how to look at your content. And that way, your content will advance, and you can come on Week in Review, and then hopefully, in a few weeks, you'll have your stuff kind of together good enough where you could be, like a guest on various channels presenting your ideas, where you have your page and your things together good enough where someone who just hears you for a few minutes could refer to your page and know how to navigate your page to understand your idea.
Yeah, that's my goal, is to make it. I think the only way to do it is, well, according to the theory, it has to be fun or it has to make money. So I got to make a game out of it, and I got to make money out of it, or it's just another theory. Everybody's got theories.
Well, just take it from science. Do what works. So it's saying, okay,
Right.
you got your page, you got your idea, you got your monologues. What type of reaction are you doing? And you could have your postulates of what you think is going to work. But at the end of the day, you'll probably do just what works, and you may not know at the beginning what's going to work.
The chat wants to know if you could say whether you've considered how this works in with other HR tools.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's a lawsuit detector. If you got the back end set up where you just give the person, it's at their desk, on their screen, on their phone, whatever, the app, and you just say, if anything bothers you, we want you to be happy. This is your employee. We want you to be happy. If you're ever uncomfortable, let us know. Okay, I'm uncomfortable. She pushes the yellow button, and then she says, why? Well, I don't like the way this guy is looking at me. Okay, so if you're the manager.
Yeah, but I think that's the purpose of what we want you to understand. Week in Review, like, you should, advance your theory and then come on Week in Review and give a synopsis.
Well, he was asking about HR, and that's how you do it. You match the color slope. If you have a green employee that all of a sudden goes yellow, we'll figure out what the problem is. Oh, it's sexual harassment. We'll get rid of the sexual harasser, or maybe she just doesn't like working with people. Put her in a new spot, and then she'll be happy. So you see a color slope change from green to yellow. What happened? Oh, sexual harassment. Okay, get her out of there. Now she's happy. So
we don't need narrative. I mean, saying Libra, I think that's me and Jennifer are mathematically minded people. We don't need narrative examples.
No,
we understand the mathematics. We don't need a narrative example for you to explain the use of your idea. That's what we're saying. This is Week in Review. We focus on meta-analysis, and you're giving us narrative that we're not discouraging. We're not saying it's not interesting and good content. We just want you to get in kind of and for your own good. I'm saying, I don't know if you've ever worked in management. I've worked in management. My sister's worked in management. I studied management. I went to university to study management. They're just a protocol and method for advancing things. And one of those is a weekly get together with colleagues and peers, where you just kind of give a weekly update on the advancement of your ideas, and say, me and Jennifer largely to a large, understand the larger picture of what your idea, and we don't need a continual narrative of various cool things that your idea does.
Well, I'm sorry, that was just the comment. So yeah, that's how you work with HR, and that'll be one of the big features going forward. So, okay, well, I got to get going myself, but
real quick.
What's that?
Can I say something about this real quick?
Sure.
I was thinking about this in the stream earlier, but I didn't really find an opportunity to say it. But I think it's really interesting in your chart thing that your little characters are all actually symbols that are related to what you are representing.
Yeah, well, that's an important part of it. Right?
Like square in some ancient cultures was used to represent Earth, and the triangle is actually often used to represent the voice, and the circle usually represents either the whole universe or the void or something.
Yeah. Well,
and then those seem very closely related to body, voice, and mind.
Yeah, well, it's not really intentional, but when it lines up beautifully. So I found that very interesting, how it aligns with all sorts of old cultures and just stuff that has survived thousands of years, because of course it is. Of course it's going to line up, without even intending to. Of course it's going to, right? It has to.
Also, Supra, would you want some resources on mathematics?
Right now, all I need for resources is a programmer and to make a back end so that business can use this and government can use this and schools can use this and every single person on earth can use it if they want to, because it'll make things simpler. You just condense infinite data into a single color point. What do you want to know? Is your business good? Okay, green. Oh, you want it to be blue? Well, this is why it's only green. You see what I mean? Oh, my grades are purple. Awesome, I'm doing great. Not worry about my grades. You take any set of data and turn that into a color and stop worrying about whatever's underneath that color, or worry about it if it's the wrong color. So I'm looking for people that are program the back end. I'm working with some people right now, and we're just getting this off the ground, looking for the right eyes to see it and go, oh yeah, this is how you fix everything. Just track it. Ask people.
It's better than last week. I mean, maybe from what you showed us last week. So I'm saying like it definitely is more to demonstrate your idea than you showed us last week.
Yeah, well, that's what I just want to show the new toy, and then the business models. You just track these. You know, this is just to demonstrate. But if you track that color, purple, the yellow, back to purple means a mistake, a problem. You took care of it. So it's a matter of just doing it and getting the right people on it. I don't know how to do that. So that's what I'm looking for right now.
Yeah, and you'll see, it might be unrelated, but just to have general success in being a systematized person, and you may have been able to successfully come up with a great idea and not be a systematized person, and therefore it may be difficult to go about a systematic process of, so to say, advancing your ideas and using streaming and all in business and all these things related to advancing your idea, or if you are naturally a systematized person.
No, that's my problem. Chaotic. But I found someone who is systematized, so I think we're going to have things organized now, and I finally got the GUI for it. It was always theoretical and hard to communicate, and now it's just a picture to drag around. So that's going to make it a lot easier for people to understand.
Can I ask something? Because I've shown that object to both Doovid and Supra. You guys saw my neuron object in Java, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if Jennifer has it to bring up, or you want to,
I'm not actually sure what he's talking about. Sorry, did you send it to me?
I don't think I did.
I guess I'm not cool enough to get sent the thing, am I?
Well, you might as well screen share it, or you're streaming, so like the quality
I'm on my
of your
phone,
streaming,
so I can't really screen share.
Okay, I mean, just saying the ability of you to advance in streaming and get your ideas out there will definitely correlate to your ability to use the computer technology and be quick and handy with things like that. I'll check my Facebook message to see if it's in my message history with you.
I've got to go, but thank you very much, Jen, for inviting me on, and Doovid, I appreciate that, and Howie, talk to you later. Good night.
Thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you soon, and yeah, we'll keep in touch about what's new. It would be nice to know, like, meta now.
Can you see the screen on your phone, Howie?
Yes, I can.
Is this it?
That is actually an app for the quantum oscillator.
Was that? I'm just checking the Facebook to see if it was. I mean, you sent me a few memes and saying, "Did you?" Is it something that you sent? And do you remember sending it to me? If I'm scrolling up, will I find it?
Yeah, I did. I know I sent it to you. I just don't remember how far back it was.
Is it worth looking, or like I've already been scrolling up?
It's not exactly necessary to show exactly what the thing was.
And that first thing I showed wasn't related?
Yeah, no, that wasn't actually related. But basically, the neuron object that I have written up is, oh, there it is. There it is.
Oh, the code. You didn't mean
the
graphic. You meant this code.
Yeah.
Is that you have me clicked on, Jennifer?
Indeedly doodly.
Yeah, this code is not perfect, but and actually that was a rough draft.
Legibility of your handwriting. I'm trying to zoom it, and it's hard even to zoom up. But
Yeah, my handwriting is not the best.
I mean, you define a few variables, and then you got public class neuron, private float, activation value, weight, weight 3, private string neuron name, private array list neuron outputs equals new, can't even read, starts with an A, neuron, private float. So I mean, it's hard to follow all the logic here. I mean, I could see kind of the variables that you're naming, and I guess you have um, a float.
Yeah, that float is a type of operation. Or it's actually been a little while since I read up on what it is, but it's necessary for the program to function in Java. But like you
Yeah,
don't,
I've
my
studied a little bit
handwriting,
of Java, so yeah, I mean the different input
my
type
handwriting
language,
is
what
really
you're
bad.
doing with these your variables or arrays or data structure where you're going to feed a bunch of data and have the computer um, make operations to the data and output some useful data. So I mean, whether this program would actually compile and work, or if it's just theoretically an idea you had, or this something you actually compiled and worked, or it's possible like if you tried to compile it, the code's not even valid.
Yeah, that code there is actually not valid. That code there is erroneous. That was a rough draft that I wrote back in 2018 just to get the idea out. But you can see what I'm going for there.
What is it, Howie?
Yeah, I mean, just say like Libra, like everybody is looking for free IT. Like obviously, like there's a reason why like Doooovid became a Hindu, and it's related to like
Because
the
you're looking
demand.
for free IT. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I said
Doovid.
that's what led so many Indian people to come to America, and for Doovid to have friends in university that were Hindus that I could learn about this stuff from, because I never made it to India. But like IT is in great demand, people get paid relatively quite a bit, it's a good profession to be in, and like everybody could use a buddy that could help them out with their computers, because people know when crap goes with their computer, they need help with something, it costs lots of money, it costs high tens of dollars, many times hundreds of dollars an hour, and something like a working web page or some programming is likely to run thousands of dollars. So a cult or something like that. Definitely programmers are always in high demand.
So what my idea with that object is, see most neural networks in computer programming, they only have a single output or a single neuron from a single algorithm. So it's one to one. Well, it's one to however many neurons are in the next row of neurons, basically. Um,
Well, I mean,
and
this
this,
is week in review, so you got to learn how to do like a meta-analysis, or kind of like a weekly update, because like you might have, like if you want to get into streaming and you want to start talking through your ideas, like week in review is not the time to do that. Week in review is the time to give a summary of your ideas and discuss future streaming, or if you yourself plan on starting your own channel and doing the streaming, that you would just a monologue for however long it took to explain the idea, and then you would come to like week in review and give a synopsis of it, and people who cared about it would migrate to your page to listen to the whole monologue. But like week in review is not the time really for like you to give a whole explanation of your idea, more a synopsis.
well, this is more of a synopsis than an in detail review of what my idea is. But my idea is basically increasing the number of algorithms that each neuron uses, and therefore increasing the entropy in the system.
You saying the neuron, the biological neuron, or the
Uh,
computer,
the
the
computer
computer programmed neuron?
the computer
things like if you think you want to become a streamer, you'll have to start investing in computer equipment and stuff like that to
Well, I do have a $3,000 computer. I just am lazy and haven't hooked it up.
Oh, well, it may not just be monetary. I'm saying if you do have the resources, thank God, and it'll be the time consumption of learning how to operate it. And as a fact, if you have more money and better understanding of the technology, like you could be producing better quality streams than me and Jennifer, like almost instantly.
I really doubt that, because don't you actually have
Maybe
to
not
know
in content
stuff?
of yeah, I mean, in terms of like personality or who you're going to speak to, but in terms of computer production, that like no, I mean, if you had computer skills and resources, in terms of the production level, Jennifer's like actually pretty reasonable programming computers and production, and is saying like like whatever her scenario or where she's living, can't have or it's not worth the money to have a internet connection that would guarantee that you would never go down midstream.
This
Yeah,
is
I
as
do
good as I
actually
can
have
get,
some.
sadly.
I do actually have some skills with this. I used to make a lot better videos than I do now, and I will admit it's partially because of my own laziness that I just haven't gotten back into making good quality content. But
You have your own YouTube page?
yeah, a lot of my videos are private or unlisted at this point, though.
Did you show some of his videos? Was that one of your things on that you showed on your channel, Jennifer?
I did do a mashup video of one of Howie's videos because it was just too damn funny not to. I'm sorry.
Wait, which one was that?
Uh
This is the first I've heard of it.
oh,
I mean,
is
can
that
you
right?
show some? Do you have images to show what he's talking about?
I don't have the actual video
You got
here.
nothing at all to show anything he's talking about.
I can try to check maybe, but it will take a few minutes to look and see if I can find any.
Yeah, but there's a whole bunch of different angles to streaming, and how you take it will completely determine, what type of outcome, and it also will determine your level of how much you're putting yourself out there, and want to use your own name and your own face to speak to people, or if you just kind of like the LARP or various relations to you and your public persona versus someone who has a university background and appreciates what it would take to be published and is looking at this or as a venue to just keep up their progress and on goal and pace towards you're just working hard on a project that is interesting to them, and or a lot of people really they just kind of waste their time streaming. They just want to shoot the breeze, and it's not wasted time as a pejorative. It doesn't have to be, but it's saying like it's like no, I'm not really here to advance my ideas. I don't really want to do that much work. I just kind of want to have like a fun, laid back conversation, and that also has value. But you need to understand that to advance in streaming, and especially for your content, and you'll probably have like a dual track type thing where you need professional type content to advance any idea, and the more professional that content is, the better you'll be able to advance your idea, and then you'll have more professional type media appearances where you need like your best behavior, and then you might have more laid back type things that you're just having conversations. You might even delete or unlist it afterwards, and you might have different levels of IRL to people that you just have hypothetical arguments that you would not want them knowing who you are, to other people where you get to know who they are and even meet them in public in person.
Yeah, actually, I used to stream a lot. Talking about 2014 up until about 2016. I was streaming pretty regularly.
Yeah, I mean, so we can review, we like the meta-analysis and kind of like a science of streaming. So, if people who are watching now, and our audience has changed over time, and even the topics, and a lot of times, like, there is no like long-term audience, just really just me and Jennifer talking about a few ideas that keeps us going on, and a few personalities that we share in terms of streaming. but streaming is relatively a science, and the more you share best practices and work at it, the better results a person has, regardless of so to say, what angles. And so we can review even for people who, so to say, are working in opposite directions, as like a union of micro streamers is still valuable to exchange best practices, especially now in like the days of censorship and all the various difficulties that make it hard to get ahead streaming.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Howie's actually interested in streaming as a thing.
A little bit. I kind of gave up on YouTube as a source of income, so it's not exactly like I take YouTube very seriously anymore.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend considering YouTube as a source of income. I mean, if someone had basically the statistics show you got to have 100,000 subs to even make like a lower middle class supplement to your income. So or a super chat, and super chats largely come from cultivating a base of donors that is more attuned to cultcraft than streaming, of how you cultivate a regular base of donors. It's more kind of like forming a cult than good streaming that allows that to happen. So it's an unlikely scenario for someone. If you're streaming long term, it's okay, like you want to do it in a way that makes it more likely that it would be profitable, or in a way that aligns with profitability, or to say like, no, you're not going to align your streaming with profitability. And then in that case, largely you would be saying, I'm going to stream out of my own pocket as some sort of charity, where largely I'm doing something to advance my own academic ability to talk with other people or get my ideas out there, or to speak with other people that would it's easier to do through streaming, get feedback on my ideas, and I'm willing to pay for that. And recognizing that streaming is going to be an expense, a source of a constant expense, not income.
All right, so I guess we can go on to next topic.
Did you want to hype up?
Can show the audience my little paper that I did.
Jennifer, you have Howie here. Do you want to hype up this Aryan debate? Is that why you're on, Howie? That you were gonna try to like hype up some?
Oh no, I actually, the last time we did that, I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't expecting it either.
So that's not what you want me. I mean, to schedule a debate that you're not really interested in preparing and doing a formal debate on Aryan invasion.
I would be more interested in preparing and doing a formal debate than just an offhand kind of stream debate,
Yeah, but that's what we can review. Like, we're not trying to have a debate on Week in Review. We're trying to schedule and organize and agree to the parameters of this debate. And I thought that's why Jennifer said you were coming on. Although just random to shoot the breeze, that a little bit, that's also fine. But I thought that was why she said she wanted you to come on, was so we could.
Yeah, no, I was under the impression I was just randomly here to just shoot the shit,
Oh, generally like that's not Week in Review. Like, that's a chill stream. Like Doooovid is always goal oriented and never does that. Like, to me, that's just a sign of wasting time. But like, I'm not prescriptive to what other people would do, and so that means you're not interested in formally like taking the affirmative in a formal Aryan invasion debate.
Well, I'd like to have that scheduled. I'd like to know when that's showing up, because
this Week in Review.
Last time,
this Week in Review, like, that's what we do. Like, do you want to discuss the parameters and set a date and rules?
Yeah,
that would, right now.
That would be nice, actually.
Okay, and I thought, like, Jennifer, like, I would probably be the one moderating it. I offer to. You could do it without a moderator. I could moderate it from the chat. There's different methods of doing it, but it's saying it's going to be a formal debate, and you and Jennifer are going to have to agree on first the major topic, where it's generally Aryan invasion theory. Howie is taking the affirmative that it's true. Jennifer is taking the negative that it's false, and so presumably that requires Howie to make the case first of present the case of what Aryan invasion theory is and why he thinks it's true, and then Jennifer would rebut it, and then there would be some agreed upon process of questioning and back and forth on that, and so Howard, do you have it in you to formally prepare and present a case that the Aryan invasion case theory is true?
Yes, I do. Can I add something? It's not that I'm not able to write these long form, full on academic papers. It's more that I've said this 3 times now, but it's my laziness.
Well, time. That's why you're here with Doooovid. I mean, basically, like, you're paying. I mean, you're not paying me, but like, I'm doing you a favor and like yelling at you, for your own good. Like you're saying, don't piss your life away. You have more potential than capable. Maybe you're doing pretty good, and like, you got into an American capitalist field where the only way you could do better is to like make more money, accumulate more power, experience more pleasures, and you forgot that you could just dedicate your mind towards understanding and advancing ideas, even though it may not provide you a capitalistic benefit, and that's better than being lazy. It's better to spend a few years advancing some intellectual idea than so following your local baseball team or whatever. That's a decision that you could make, and the type people who feel like that are the type people that tune into Week in Review, and maybe you do it watching the game if that's your thing. But the person that would say, yeah, I'm going to spend a few hours reading a few books and preparing a case of why Aryan invasion theory, just because it's important to know the truth.
Yeah. So the thing is, like I said last time, I'm not really into things that aren't pragmatic. This was really just a thing where I had followed evidence and logic to this conclusion, and I presented it to Jen, and Jen and I really didn't agree on it, and we haven't agreed for like 2 or 3 years now. And yeah, Jen,
it's a huge subject, and it's like obviously there's hundreds of millions of people on both sides of this issue, and there's been a lot of people who have killed each other. Like, from a factual point of level, this isn't an armchair philosophical thing. This is at the crux of the deaths of countless people and the claim of territory and the direction of history. And we could look at it from an intellectual level, where it's just like which factually is a correct account of what historically happened, or if you're taking a side and saying that, like, no, there is an impending war, and if you're on the affirmative of Aryan invasion theory and Jennifer is on the negative, that it could come out that there's actually going to be a war within relatively, God forbid, political instabilities, the near future, and you and her will be on different sides.
and see, the thing is,
You took birth on one side or the other of this issue. You say, okay, if you were born in a white body, it doesn't matter your opinion on the history of the conflict between white body people and darker skinned body people. Your karma of your soul entered the birth of, say, a white body person. That's your karma, regardless of your interpretation of that. It'd be like an armchair that cares about the Aryan invasion theory. It's like, no, the culture wars are real. Economic, all these various world things are real. And the Aryan invasion theory is actually a very important issue to understand global, regional politics, economics, cultural factors. And you might be on the other side of it. You're saying, could be the type way you could reduce the argument that in America, who cares about the Aryan invasion theory, but from a more academic perspective, and actually say, Black Lives Matter really is a debate about Aryan invasion theory. That when you come down to it, what you see in the street and all the publicity about Trump and the culture wars in America, from a more intellectual, high IQ point of view, the juxta of the argument might actually be Aryan invasion theory.
I really doubt Howie has thought about it to this extent, but I have, and I don't know if I go to quite that extent of dramatic presentation, though I do appreciate it greatly. It's certainly interesting. I don't see the Black Lives Matter as exactly the same. I'm more thinking along the lines of, like, what's the group that says, like, the Black Hebrew Israelites? Is that what they're called?
There's the Black Israelites, and there's is it Hotep?
Black Israelites are the ones that think that the blacks are there's different versions of original peoples and who did what for the world. So, I mean, really, Aryan invasion theory is really an argument over like whose granddaddy is better, who did more for the world. Who it's really an argument over from the pure perspective. The question is, what is the current state of karma? And obviously, there's huge implications to what the current state of karma is, because there's a mechanistic aspect to karma where if you know what caused karma beforehand to be the current state of karma that we are in today, that is the most large consideration of what the karma in the future is going to be. So everyone has a stake in understanding the current state of karma and the direction that karma is moving. And generally, the best way to do it is to understand the historical forces of the past that caused the current state of karma to be the current state of karma. So the question of the Aryan invasion theory is really crucial to what is the current state of karma. And it also goes to the point, even if you never thought about the Aryan invasion theory, you have no idea what it means, you have no idea about that area of the world or anything, to know that it's not directly Black Lives Matters, but a lot of these contexts about the rise and fall of nations and who has power, who is gaining power, and who is losing power is based on how you historically understand who had power and why, and the rise and fall of nations and various things related to mathematically what could best I'll just call karma.
See, my thing about this is I see the ancient Aryan theory much the same.
Sorry, before you go on, I just want to ask Doovid real quick where you sent Ethos Anand the link, because he's in the chat right now and he'd possibly like to come on, but he's not sure where you sent it. So if you could just tell us, and then go ahead, Howie.
Okay, yeah, I just Facebooked him the link. I hadn't sent him the link. I just told him we were going.
Womp womp. Doovid, streaming protocol failure. My goodness, God forbid.
No, it was streaming protocol that I did not give him the link an hour ago. And not that I didn't trust him, but I just figure I told him an hour ago when he was streaming, he'll get ready and he'll come on. So I could have just given him the link, but I feel I'll wait till he messages, because it'll be easier to not interrupt the stream than having him just pop on.
I was just teasing you, Doovid. I think here he is. He's on, and welcome to the show. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming on over to my channel. This is our other friend, Howie. We've known each other for a few years now, and we're just talking about a possible debate we're going to be having about the origin of the Aryas.
The Aryan invasion theory, which is something that I'm sure Ethos Anandos knows about, and if he's affiliated with ISKCON, is vehemently against. If he is not affiliated with ISKCON, he might have some leanings toward it, but I doubt it. I can't imagine anybody that understands the Vedas would even posture the validity of the Aryan invasion theory.
Okay, first of all, thank you guys for inviting me. Thanks a lot. So I only know a tiny bit about this Aryan stuff, a few passing verses that Srila Prabhupada would talk about. That's all I know. So I can't say I'm for or against anything, because I don't really fully understand what the Aryan invasion is.
Well, just the bigger back view. I mean, we have Howie on different topics and we're trying to arrange debates. And Ethos, he's an interesting character. He's into Vedic philosophy, Krishna, Bhagavad Gita, Ethos, Aristotle. He's in China, teaching English and wisdom to people, and he likes debating, and he's joined our circles. And Howie, I'm not sure if he's just friends with Jennifer, and he's thinking about whether he wants to get into debating. And so Ethos just popped on. We were in the middle of negotiating and scheduling, setting a date, formalizing, hyping up a debate between Jennifer and Howie of the Aryan invasion theory, where Howie would take the affirmative, which would make him the one who would have to explain what it is and defend it. For Jennifer actually needs someone to explain what it is and defend it for her to say it's false. And unfortunately, most people, though it's the mainstream theory, don't even know what it is. Even though, like, if you ask your academics in university or your high IQ gatekeepers of the West, they'll all tell you Aryan invasion theory. But probably 90% of people in the West have never even heard of it. But we could.
They've heard of it in the context of other things, like the stuff Howie espouses, even though he claims to not know about Aryan invasion theory, it's somehow connected to it. Like those ideas. Dude, you know what I realized that it is? It's the blue-eyed thing. I actually realized there's actually a pretty good hypothesis buried in there about the blue eyes thing. Because what if the reason society decayed is because these blue eyes thing evolved, and then people thought it was so beautiful, and they equate beauty to skill, but it's actually a false attribution in this case. So the love of blue eyes has torpedoed civilization. I just want to throw that out there because you've been telling about that for a while, but I was thinking about it because I had this thing where I was at this video analysis conference, and it was 75% guys with blue eyes, and I'm that's more than random chance, don't you think?
Well, it depends where you are. So if you're very far north, no, I mean, it could be that there should be 90% of people. I think when you get into Finland and that far up north, even 90% of people have blue eyes. So if you were in Washington D.C. because the origins of blue eyes is usually related geography, and that there's geographical maps. I'm sure you could just Google and put up where it shows you the percentage of people, geographic regions of blue eyes, and there's regions where it's higher than 75%, although very few regions. And it could be even in Canada, if you're not integrated with the Native Americans, maybe even in northern Canada, as you get further north, the percentages would increase where even it's well over 50%. In professions like that, like banking or elites, not even white. So you notice banking or certain professions, it's just something that okay, I noticed. It didn't matter. I just noticed, I didn't do a study of it. But certain areas that you just notice that there's, different type people in them. And so I always made a connection because I always differentiated blue-eyed Jews from, Jews who didn't. Or I had a fellow chess coach, differentiate, white. He was an African-American man, but, different shades of white. And I do think that is useful as a pattern. And in terms of anyone thinks about racism, saying, okay, is there a difference between being black and white? If there's a difference between being black and white, there's probably also a difference between someone who has blue eyes and brown eyes, including, say, Jennifer, if she's completely Irish, and a brown-eyed Irish person. If there's a difference between black and white people, maybe there's also a difference between a brown-eyed Irish person and a blue-eyed Irish person.
Well, according to my studies, it's a spontaneous transition when you're in the underworld, quote unquote, for long enough, because it doesn't get as much sun as anywhere else. So it just seems to happen spontaneously because it makes the absorption of the vitamin D easier, I guess, or whatever.
Well, I don't want to be in the position I have to explain Aryan invasion theory just to disprove it. It's just like evolution, where I have to explain evolution to disprove it because most people don't actually understand evolution. But the concept of where we believe the origins of people and the rise and fall of power of nations, all different cosmologies, the Vedas, the Jews, the Kabbalah, evolution. There's hundreds of different explanations and cosmologies for the origins of nations. The mainstream university model is evolution, and from that, it's simple. As people migrated north and reached higher north, that it was selected for blue eyes, largely related to geography, and then later there could have been sexual selection. The original blue eyes were not related to sexual selection; it was related to living in cold climates and further up north with less sunlight, and that's why till today those areas, have like 90% people with blue eyes. If you look at a map of Europe, you could see an exact map, and it largely most makes sense with a geographic explanation. However, as people, you don't have to believe that's the origin of the blue-eyed man. There's different ulterior explanations, and you don't have to believe in evolution or Noah. And there's theories that there were different nations and different people, and like kind of Northern and some of the pagan theologies is that there was a clan of blue-eyed people that went around the world and did certain things, and some of those could be considered egalitarian, where there's just different people with different skills in different areas of the world, or some of them could be considered like non-egalitarian, where some people, God forbid, are better than others. And within that framework, like Aryan invasion theory, you're just saying that if you're looking at the Vedas, the Germans, the various people, they came to India. They recognized that there was a very ancient culture there, and they recognized that they had these huge temples and very complex theologies. And probably largely due to bias, they didn't want to think that those theories arose from the people of those territories, or they had different reasons that were matching different explanations, that they believed that those traditions came from people likely in the Iran area that are referred to as Aryan. And the blue-eyed thing is different. There's similar theories of, and also sometimes the word Aryan is used, that would say that yes, the Aryan invasion theory is true, but it was because of this superior, higher evolved group of blue-eyed people that traveled around the world and taught culture to the world. In that, there's very little, almost none scientific. The Aryan invasion theory of like some group of Aryans in Iran that may or may not exist anymore, or may or may not have been the father of current nations, has very little evidence. However, it's the mainstream support of current Western understanding of the Vedas. The concept that like the Aryans were these like blue-eyed super race has almost no scientific basis, and it's not accepted anywhere like in university. However, it's part of possibly a view of Greek pagan European theology, and there's some evidence that I mentioned to Howie in terms of like Cortez and the first blue-eyed people that came to the South, and that they were thought as gods. And even in India, there's very few stories of like blue-eyed people coming to India and being thought of as gods.
Yeah,
And
the only references you can find are these intentionally mistranslated Vedic passages where they're talking about the light-skinned people slaughtering the black-skinned people, but that's not the correct translation. It's the righteous people slaughtering the unrighteous people, for God's sake.
Well, so the evidence is
goddamn immature, right? That's like cited as evidence.
You have also the evidence that Howie message, which is largely the use of lapis lazuli in the Middle East, and that there's not even there's a lot of deities that have blue eyes, like blonde hair, not so much. In terms of like Radha doesn't have blonde hair. Like she does usually have blue eyes. Not all Radhas have.
Krishna Ji has blue skin. Maybe he was rubbing that colloidal silver.
But I'm saying that there are artifactually, archaeologically, a lot of Middle Eastern deities, Egyptian deities, Indian deities that have blue eyes. And there's different explanations for that. Most likely is due to the artistic value of lapis lazuli. Not that it was being used to represent blue-eyed people because the gods, but if you were trying to stretch Aryan invasion theory to say like, no, the Aryans created Vedic culture and they had blue eyes, and the fact that some of the deities have blue eyes is proof of that. It's pretty weak proof, because like reality is very few of the deities have blue eyes, and the folklore that would say that the wisdom came from those people, and even most proponents educationally of the Aryan invasion theory are highly, the evolutionary proponents of Aryan invasion theory do not think that the Aryans had blue eyes. They were most likely Iranian, Persian type people.
That's again not correct, right?
It is correct. I mean, according to the mainstream evolutionary
According to
understanding
the
of
mainstream,
Aryan,
evolution
is
is
that
true.
the Aryans that invaded India and created the Vedas also went north, and the Aryans that went north eventually evolved to have blue eyes. But the Aryans that went to the Vedas were definitely not the ones with blue eyes. The blue eyes were a separate group that went north, and the whole reason that they have blue eyes is because they went north.
I think the timeline's a bit messed up there in terms of what the mainstream narrative is. I mean, isn't the Aryan invasion theory mainstream scientifically accepted quote unquote narrative?
No.
Well, what is then?
What is that Göbekli Tepe was built by hunter-gatherers and not by an agricultural civilization. The Noah hypothesis is also rejected in the mainstream, and I happen to agree with the existence of a Noah type figure. Although when exactly Noah existed and survived the Great Flood is debatable, and what actual nationality he was is also debatable.
Yeah, I mean, biblically, the most pure understanding is Noah literally had different racial kids. That Japhet, they all came biologically from Noah and his wife, but Japhet had blonde hair and blue eyes. Ham had dark skin and curly hair, and Shem, the Semites, was in between. That from the purest biblical understanding, that's the best way to understand it. And you could give an evolutionary, neo synthesis type view. But if you're saying that no, the Bible's a book of miracles, the God did it the way God did it, and that this is the way God did it. That Noah had 3 different kids that were 3 different races, but all had the same biological father.
See, I take the biblical view on the actual ark itself, but I do not take the biblical view on the racial thing.
Well, but if you're saying you don't take the biblical view that all humans are descended from Noah?
Yeah. I'm saying Noah may not have been the only person to survive the flood. There was definitely a flood that happened about 12,000 years ago. The mainstream does accept this as the Younger Dryas period, and well, that would most likely be the time when Noah would have survived the flood, would have built the ark to survive the flood, and but just because he's the only person we have a story about doing so does not mean that he was the only person to have done so.
Obviously, I mean,
Not
these are all speculations. This was cosmology, even evolution and history are largely speculative. Even from Libra's context, you're saying bozo, history doesn't even exist. You're speculating about something that doesn't even exist because we're in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Are you guys familiar with the Shraddha Deva Manu? There's a flood story in that, and a boat building story in that as well.
Well, there's also one in the what was it called? The Epic of Gilgamesh.
Right. So it appears to be some kind of archetypal narrative.
If we could try to do more week in review, and we could just say all this cool stuff that each other know and it's interesting, but the purpose is to advance streaming, and streaming is not going to get advanced from just us that's cool and that reminds me of something else that's cool. And what we're trying to do is set up a debate, and he's saying either Howie doesn't have it in him and he's not going to do the research to even be able to put up a fight and do an affirmative and explain the Aryan invasion theory and then argue why he's in favor of it. So it's a waste of time to try to structure a debate and or not. I mean, so what's the deal?
I'm definitely
Well,
down for it.
I am willing to put in the effort, but I haven't.
By like tomorrow night at 7,
Done
or like
this
by
topic.
3 weeks.
Maybe
Or you got to
Next-
come back next week
like,
and review and tell us, like,
next
definitely not
Saturday.
this week.
Would next Saturday be okay?
Well, I was you're professional. You
And
know,
that's why
if you're
I'm
scheduling
saying-
it, I assume you're coming ready for it. I mean,
Yeah,
you could
that's
be
why I
cleared
say
here.
Saturday,
You could be
just so I
cleared
can be
here and
absolutely
claim
sure.
you're being ready for the debate. And
I
it's
think
going to
it
be
might be
but like
good.
we're hoping
down.
that you're coming ready for the debate and like planning on winning and are going to take it seriously.
Back and forth, but yeah, we should probably like actually have questions rather than just like I find the open flow debates where it's just like debate this, it ends up either becoming this, like off in the weeds and
Well, the whole reason we had to get this sidetracked and then why he thinks it's true for Jennifer to